All right, everyone, thanks for joining us. We're going to kick off. It's about 12:08. Thank you for this session from the AIPMO ambassador team and external PhD candidates and Professor Mancini over in Italy. We're officially going to kick this off and talk about PMO evaluation using toolkits, resources, and processes. This session will probably last under an hour. I have a variety of topics to go through. And with that said, I'm going to allow our esteemed ambassadors to introduce themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that. My name is Joshua Edlin. I'm one of the AIPMO ambassadors. I have about a little over 20 years at the enterprise / transformational PMO level. In particular, I'm in the aviation field, which is a very highly regulated field. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Enjoy it, although it's extremely meticulous. One aspect I really enjoy is the creativity and then actually seeing the impact of increased safety level. Thank you very much. Who would like to go next? Omar.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Joshua. My name is Omar Abbas. I have around 20 years of experience in the fields of projects, programs, portfolio management, and management offices. I'm currently in consulting, working with PwC here in Saudi Arabia, and I really appreciate being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Omar. Let's see, Professor Mancini, would you like to go next?
Yes, hi, thanks very much for the invitation. My name is Mauro Mancini. I'm a full professor in project management at the Politecnico di Milano University in Italy, and I'm also the Associate Dean for the Corporate Education of the Business School, Graduate School of Management of Politecnico. My experience of 30 years in the area of project management, mainly from the academic point of view, but also with a lot of consultancies in the oil and gas and civil sector. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Professor. Really appreciate that. Next will be Ben.
Welcome, colleagues. My name is Ben Pires. I'm from Cape Town, South Africa. I am the EPMO lead and director within the city of Cape Town in the government sector, working in the field of project management, PMOs, program portfolio management, especially in the portfolio management field for more than 22 years. So yes, thank you for joining.
Appreciate that, Ben. David, thank you. Anything before we start?
No, I think we're good, Josh. Ready to rock and roll. Yep.
Just want to say a thank you to everyone who joined. Really do appreciate that. Our goal here is to make this as relevant as possible to everybody here, us as well as the audience. The discussion is going to be focused on enterprise PMOs, the evaluation toolkits, meaning the frameworks, the approaches, some of the benefits, some of the constraints, and a future state. The key theme today is going to be between process maturity and enterprise value, and the approach versus the two of those. The format's going to be practical, conversational, executive level. In particular, while we're going through the questions, there will be 3 questions. Each SME will answer, and that'll complete a round. We really encourage you to input any comments, questions, input at any point in time. At the conclusion of all 3 questions, we have a set time of approximately 8 to 10 minutes for Q&A. That's when we'll focus on the main aspects from the comments. The more engagement, the better. And from here, we're going to begin with question 1. And this is going to be going to David. David, of the EPMO evaluation toolkits currently available, which single toolkit do you currently find most valuable And can you briefly describe how the toolkit operates?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of toolkits out there, Josh and team. There's the MI tool from AIPMO. There's toolkits within several EPMOs like Crowley, Primavera. In my experience, those toolkits are very valuable. However, I found looking at the ground on the outcomes and working with the stakeholders measuring the PMO and their client stakeholders, the people receiving the benefits, is most valuable. So, for example, when I've gone into PMOs to evaluate them and then look at their handbook, their processes, and actually talk to those stakeholders, they have been given the most valuable input in terms of the effectiveness of a PMO based on their KPIs, operational aspects, and where they're heading to. Talking to the C-level is also very valuable to make sure they're getting what they need on the ground. And you see the business cases live and all the tangible benefits, hard facts.
Appreciate that. Quite interesting. Thank you, David. Next, Omar. Same question.
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. However, when we're using these tools, we should keep in mind that executives should be able to interpret EPMO evaluation outputs without being burdened or misled with numbers, maturity scores that, let's call it generic toolkits, provide without having the organizational context. EPMO evaluation should move, as we said before, from process maturity all the way to become an enterprise value, governance, and decision quality diagnostic tool. I'm not suggesting that process maturity toolkits are not important. They are very important. They provide common ground, a foundational step for the EPMO journey to mature into the pillars of providing impact, value, and benefits. So to answer this question, I will not specify a tool. However, I will suggest that any tool that we're going to use generically will provide us with generic answers, generic scores. So we always need to take this tool and add to the contextual level of the organization to make it relevant. Thank you.
That was quite interesting. Quick capture for those just joining. The question was on eval toolkits and how they operate. The answers surround the maturity and the actual process value. And there's quite a few different toolkits available. Although what I'm capturing is that when using one particular toolkit, it's taken with a grain of salt, so to speak, meaning there's more input for the actual situation, the context, some of the areas that can't be input in a generic level. So really appreciate that. With that being said, we're going to move to a 1C question, and this is going to be geared towards Professor Mancini. Professor Mancini.
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Question for you would be, what if no formal toolkits were available? How do you evaluate an established PMO, particularly the people and the process?
Okay, thanks so much. I would say that generally the type, the configuration of the PMO depends on the period that the company is living, no, in terms of strategy, in terms of process to be developed, and so on. Generally, my suggestion is that we should design PMO on the basis of two dimensions mainly. No? One dimension is what is the real leader, driver for the PMO, if it's oriented to stakeholder or shareholders. And it's important to have this in our mindset, in our approach, in order to judge the activity of the PMO respect to the capability to better answer to the need of the stakeholder or of the shareholders. And this is, in my opinion, one parameter of generic evaluation. Once, as Omar said, depends on the type of the tool. If it's precise, it's precise. The answer, if it's generic, is generic. Generally, when we don't have or we don't use this tool for the evaluation of PMO, this distinction for working for shareholders or working for stakeholder can help us to judge the performances of the PMO on the basis of the satisfaction of the shareholders or of the stakeholder. And the second lens that I use generally is if they respect an original level of design. This means if the PMO, let me say, control the performances, controlling the results, so the output, or controlling the process. This means that in some company, we, let me say, don't mind how you reach the goal, but it's important to reach the goal. Thanks to an emergency of an hospital. While in other situation, is important to control the process that I use in order to reach the goal. And so this could be a second lens to judge the performances. So if I design my PMO in order to control the output, or if I design and I fix the rule in order to control the process of project execution.
Thank you for that. That was quite interesting. It was very similar to the challenge of enterprise versus process, and using one in particular might have some biased aspects to it because you might not be able to conform that to the actual context. So now we're going to move to question 2. For those of you who are just joining us, there'll be 3 questions total. We're on question 2, and we want to make this as relevant as possible. So any comments you have, questions, input, suggestions are more than welcome and appreciated. We'll have about 8 to 10 minutes after the conclusion of the 3rd question to answer all those in particular. So now we're going to move to question 2. We'll start with David. Now, where do you see the strongest real-world applicability and organizational benefit for this toolkit or a toolkit within your environment?
I would say, Josh, value and outcomes, 100%. Whatever you're going to use to evaluate the PMO and how it's going to run its cycle and framework, it's going to be in the outcomes and the business benefits and enabling technology to support and deliver on that. So that's capital funding, resources, everything within that bucket to make sure you're 100% monitoring that. And secondly, from a framework and process point of view, and looking at the whole toolkit in its entirety, monitoring that, regularly to make sure you're on track and see if you have to address your KPIs and operational metrics. That's huge. And that can work in any environment globally.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Next, we'll move to Omar. Same question.
Thanks, Josh. Well, let's say that the selection of the evaluation tool has been done to match the objectives of this evaluation in the first place. So, what are, once we identify our objectives of this evaluation, then we need the results to answer specific senior management questions and concerns. the selected tool, and again, I will not identify any tool, but the selected tool, the right tool, which is tailored to the organizational context, will provide context, structure, common language, and diagnostic discipline. This will be very applicable only once this is coupled with an executable and realistic roadmap. And this roadmap should be targeted towards the organization achieving its strategic objectives or fixing a big challenge or an issue that they are facing. And from an EPMO perspective, the result should not be the result, and the scores should not be what we are doing this exercise for. The result should be something that is applicable and current to the current situation. Thank you.
I appreciate that. We have a 2B question, although I'd like to just do a real quick recap. It sounds like a lot of the answers are focused on the value and the benefit, right? And so how to judge that and balance that with the objectives and KPIs of the specific situation that you're in, meaning the best that, or the more enhanced those objectives and KPIs are going to significantly benefit not just the initial aspect, all the way through the end of having the value and the benefit. So on that, we're going to move to a 2B. David, start with you again. Are there any limitations, risks, false confidence areas, or improvement opportunities organizations should remain aware of when using this approach?
I would say the only major risk I can think of, to be honest with you, and every organization is different, but actually looking at the outcomes and hard facts. If you don't do that and you're going by hearsay or just what one party is saying and not looking at the business cases and tangible outcomes, that puts you at major risk. So you actually want to work with your finance team and look at the value and benefits and the hard dollars you're generating across the organization when you're evaluating these areas. That's what's truly going to give you the net outcomes of how effective the PMO is working itself. And also talk to the PMO itself about what resources and facets they need to be effective. So it should be a two-way street.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Omar, same question.
Well, one of the most overlooked limitation is when the evaluation exercise or the assessment exercise itself becomes process-centric. So we care about the process and the steps of the evaluation rather than, let's say, tailoring and as we go, evolving our assessment. This is one of the overlooked challenges. And to answer the question about risks, yes, one major risk is false confidence. So when we get a maturity score of, let's say, 4, and we identify ourselves as a mature EPMO, without having a lens that measures our impact, our generated benefits, the return of investment on the amount of money invested in this EPMO, staff, tools, and resources, that will be a major risk. Third risk will be copying what we did before, copying the same evaluation approach and assessment approach from a previous EPMO to the one that we're evaluating right now without looking at the contextual background of the organization, and what does this PMO actually does. Is it standalone EPMO? Does it have multiple PMOs under it? Does it serve business? Is it strategically oriented only, and delivery is somewhere else? So yes, those will be the major risk, in my opinion.
Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. As a 2-minute recap, I really appreciated how really focused on what actual risks and the impact to this company or stakeholders. And that comes from looking at the actual outcome and hard facts that David mentioned. In the framework of that, meaning along with Omar's response, is that cookie cutters, right? So in particular, if it worked for one organization and it worked very well, now repeating that precisely could have some potential risks and downfalls, where if there's some time taken perhaps before, and focus on the communication of at the executive level, the stakeholders, all the key individuals involved, and framing the aspects and the vision and goals from there, and how, whether that's done or not done, or done at a 50%, has significant impact down the road. Thank you. Now we're going to move to question 3. At the end of question 3, then I'll do another recap, and we're going to shift to Ben Peters. After Ben Peters' segment, I really appreciate all the questions. Please keep asking them, because we'll have about 10 minutes specifically just for the Q&A segment. David, question 3. Of the identified, we'll say, challenges, if these improvement areas were all addressed, where do you see the greatest opportunity for broader enterprise level value, scalability, and possibly a future state maturity across different organizational environments?
So just to recap your question, Josh, so I understand it, if through these findings, you're able to improve everything to be almost absolutely perfect, right? Sort of a utopian state, what is the best outcomes you could see from there? I would say more strategic effectiveness, enhanced at another level. Organizational capability and competitiveness is increased, and awareness, thought leadership, and creativity throughout the organization, with the PMO as a facilitator and driver. And recalibrating the whole governance framework from those findings overall within the PMO.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Just to key in, I appreciated the overall the governance portion and how critical that is. So thank you. Omar, same question. This is a hypothetical or future state question, meaning there are some very impactful challenges and risks that were just described. And presuming if these challenges and risks were all improved, where do you see the greatest opportunity for broad enterprise level scalability and future state maturity in the different organizations?
Thank you, Josh. Well, let me start by stating the ugly truth about this. These enhancements and these additions to the EPMO will not happen overnight. So this will take time, patience, and dedication from senior executive management, as well as the other business unit within the organization. having said that and keeping that in mind, one of the most visible area of improvement is once we move the EPMO from project delivery context and elevating it to a strategic business partner within the organization, we will be able to provide leadership with informed insights and support them in their decision making when it comes to future investments, when it comes to enhancing and evolving their strategy and going to different directions as we go. So the way I see it and the way I experienced it before is that once we elevate the EPMO and we're successful at that, senior management will be able to have informed decisions that are strategic, that are well aligned with market conditions, with the industry, with political situations that we're living in right now, and making better investment decisions. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you for that. Just like to do another 2-minute recap here. Now, while we're focused on the process maturity as well as the enterprise and value and the particulars, I appreciated that all this future state is focused on specificity, meaning when those challenges were, we'll say, addressed or improved, it's how we could focus all those objectives and KPIs specifically to the stakeholders and the executive level. Now, while that's happening, it's a leadership. So if there's a greater understanding and a greater communication and trust on that level, then as we subsequently go down between the entire process, the end results and the outcomes are significantly enhanced. So I appreciated that and just want to say a thank you. Now from here, I hand it off to Ben Peters. David or Omar, do you have anything you'd like to add? Although keep in mind, please, we will have a Q&A portion.
No, this is great. I think Ben is the perfect next step.
Okay. Thank
Agree.
you.
Thank you very much. Rita, if you just can share the screen, then I can quickly take them through. So guys, this is just a high-level view, just about the importance of while we're talking about maturity, impact, and the impact that we're trying to make as PMOs. It's just a little bit of a high-level indication of the work that I'm currently busy with, trying to bring these puzzle pieces all together. We know that we sit in a world where there is brilliant forecasting tools and techniques and everything available, and we know that there is not a lack of trying to predict project portfolios much better. But when we start looking into project predictability, we still make various mistakes, and we're still not getting the predictability right up to a particular level, which translated in me looking at the impact of what I call structural coherence of project management offices, and especially in complex multi-PMO environments where we sit with EPMOs and COEs and delivery PMOs and the like, is to understand if you have better structural coherence, will there be an impact on the internal and what I call the endogenous project portfolio volatility, where the volatility reduces, which ultimately provides the opportunity to increase and better project portfolio predictability. whilst we're looking at the particular project portfolio or the structural coherence as a term, what we're trying to understand is where must these particular PMOs be situated from a structural point of view in any organization? What is the service offerings that each one of these PMOs is about to offer for the organization to excel its maturity and its impact? How does all of these particular units integrate holistically in the organization and ensure that there is 100% strategic fit within the organization? And that is the concept that I'm trying to embed from a particular construct into the 4 dimensions that I just mentioned. And then it's ultimately try to moderate how does stronger and better project management officers and the capabilities and the strength of that PMO ultimately enable and the predictability of the organization. We have purposefully, and I have purposefully made sure that I try to differentiate from a structural point of view the elements to make sure that we focus on how the system has been designed. And when we talk about PMO capability or PMO strength, is how that system is ultimately activated and enabled to perform its functions. And that is the what we try to differentiate from a maturity point of view as well as that of an impact point of view. And you want to make sure that you differentiate those particular constructs towards the much better predictability. The key thing here is, which I would like you to leave as I conclude, is that for us it is just not to just create the predictability on its own. I believe that there is multiple external elements that plays a part. We know that there's a lot of external pressures in the world, and those external pressures will be much better absorbed by a strong PMO and a well-structured PMO. And that is part of the study that I'm looking at from a structural point of view as well as a capability point of view. I thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Ben. That was really interesting. For those joining us and in the audience, contact information and resources will also be posted at the conclusion of this event. So anybody that would like to follow up, and please do, keep in mind that information will be there. Now, at this point, I'd like to spend 10 minutes or so focusing on the audience and some of the key questions, as this is one of the most important that we can grasp and make this relevant for everybody here. This will be question 1, particularly open to anyone who would like to answer. Is there a framework or procedure or specific selection criteria to choose which of the tools available is the single best one? I'll give it a minute.
From my side, if I can have a go at this, I don't think we need to have an argument about which is the best tools in the toolkit. In my opinion, there's multiple tools that can be used, and each tool should be used for its purpose, like anything that you use in life. So it all depends on the purpose on how you want to use your particular tools that's available in your toolkit.
Thank you, Ben. Omar, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I will build on what Ben was just saying, that there is no good or bad tool. The selection process of the assessment tool is very important and very personal to the organization itself. As long as this tool answers senior management questions, as long as this tool covers the pain points or pinpoints the pain points of the organizations through different dimensions and sub dimensions, then that will be the right tool. So the answer is, as long as you do your due diligence, you understand the challenge of the organization, you understand the problem statement, then the selection will be much easier for you. Thank you.
I appreciate that. As a recap, it sounded as though trying to frame or we'll say capture which specific tool best fits, and then keeping that objective, meaning if the tool is supposed to do X and Y and it's not supposed to do A and B, to keep that in mind. Now, this will be the second question, where I'm going to combine two questions together. I thought this was particularly interesting. What indicators can tell you an EPMO is creating strategic value? And when I say indicators, I mean any positives, negatives, or KPIs that would give you this objective or inference information. Meaning, I'll recap again. What are the particular areas that you look at as far as balancing how well things are going with EPMO, meaning indicators that you do, or it could be KPIs that are pre-made?
So I'll take that one first, Josh. So number one in my mind, and I'd love to hear from the other SMEs, is the financial value that the PMOs bring into the business. So revenue, net profit, all the products and services it's overseeing. Number two is the net return on investment of the PMO itself, the number of costs of the resources of managing and running the PMO, and the output it brings overall itself should be looked at. The cost of the resources within the PMO, and then the value it adds compared to the way I answered the first part of it. And that should all tie to the business cases that the business PMO and enterprise technology PMOs are overseeing.
Okay.
So finances, to summarize, are huge. The number one aspect of how you can evaluate this.
The financial aspect and tying in,
Yep,
engaging that.
Yep.
I really appreciate that. Omar, is there any one or two that you like to focus on or think is extremely prevalent?
Yeah, I agree with what David just said. When the PMO falls within the context of being able to be measured financially. However, from my perspective and from what I experienced, you will only see the true value of the EPMO when you see true strategic steer, when you see the EPMO stepping in and addressing the senior leadership and telling them, your strategic objectives are outdated. You should change this. Your KPIs do not measure your actual performance. We have 3 huge initiatives that needs to be canceled, and the investment should be shifted somewhere else. This is in addition, definitely, to weighing this against the return of investment on the resources cost. That can be a better balance from my perspective.
Thank you for that. As a quick recap, the focus would be more on the beginning of the understanding the situation, as well as listening to the senior leadership, and then from there encouraging, or we'll say empowering, the EPMOs and others that are there to engage directly and with clarity to the senior leadership when things are going well, and particularly when things are not going well, why they're not going well, and suggest or just listen for some changes that need to be made. I think that's really important on many different levels, especially if those changes aren't made. Well, we all know the subsequent consequences of that. Let's see. I'd say we have time for one, possibly two more questions. And this question will be geared both to you, David and Omar. Particularly, David, I'm just kind of curious on your response. Who would you say is responsible for evaluating the EPMO? Would that land in the hands of business or an owner, or perhaps a corporate governance framework?
So I'd say a number of people, but the central focus honestly should be from the person sponsoring the PMO, whatever level that's at. So either CEO or someone at the C level, if that applies in an organization, or the executive level. So that's number one, because that's going to be the person representing the PMO and facing off and setting its charter and mandate, right? So it should be an unbiased review. Then I would say, secondly, financial team within the organization should evaluate it, back to the how we answered the other question, the effectiveness. And then any ancillary people that are also very important, like our technology stakeholders, we face off and use the framework to deliver success through enterprise enablement, infrastructure, app dev, stuff like that, would be very key in this overall evaluation. So you want to look at the whole spectrum, and you want to look at it globally too. You just don't want to look at it from roles. You want to look at it from aspects of different regions. Who you're supporting, is it centralized, decentralized? You want to consider that in the evaluation itself, Josh.
Thank you for that. Quite interesting. Omar?
Well, in my line of business and in my work, I do lots of PMO and management offices evaluation in general. We should what it's the best approach that gets the most results is to benchline our evaluation from the EPMO itself and from all the entities that interact with it independently. So EPMO will self-evaluate, and then the entities that interact with the EPMO will also evaluate how the management office is providing services to them. The definite answer to your question is that the EPMO should not lead its own evaluation. I agree with David on the EPMO sponsor, but not necessarily on the CEO or the senior management itself. I truly believe that once we are into this exercise, the best way to do it is to get a third party, an independent assessor evaluator who will be doing that, and this will be positioning them on same distance from everyone involved and get more objective results. Thank you.
Okay, really appreciate that. Really enjoyed the listening to the commonality of EPMO should not evaluate itself. There are many other avenues and approaches, in particular, focused on who the person was, the group, who the sponsor, and take it from there. We'll say we have time for one more question, and then we'll move forward to a wrap-up, as well as providing some resources. This is going to be open to the group. Anyone that would prefer to answer this, and particularly try to keep the answers short. We're running low on time. Now, this will be a question geared towards ROI. Is there a scientific, validated mathematical model for calculating the ROI while objectively attributing business outcomes? So, in particularly, how do you grasp the actual numbers, the actual ROI? Is there a particular way that you do that, or an equation? Could be
Well, I would
anyone.
say if anyone had the answer to that worked in every organization across the world, they should go for a patent and, get the classification for that immediately.
Absolutely. I agree. I thought this was a
The
very
ROI
good-
formula that works across the world in number of organization brings max revenue. That'd be fascinating. I wonder if some of the other SMEs want to have a stab at this, Josh, on our team, just to kind of let them chime in too.
One or two things that I would like to add there, and we're working very closely on a framework-based research approach where we've got these multiple constructs that we're working. One of my colleagues, also busy with his PhD, is actually looking at the latter part of that question, and that is the secondary outcomes that you see from the value of the PMO, and trying to understand and differentiate between the primary versus the secondary outcomes. And because sometimes we focus so much just on the primary outcomes, you try to define them, but in a lot of instances, there's the outcomes that we never anticipated, we never thought of, but they're actually making a much bigger impact of what we foresee. And that is what he's trying to understand in his study, and he's trying to build also from the work that I'm doing from a predictability point of view, trying to build from that particular aspect. And that is the way that we structure this framework-based research approach with the assistance of AIPMO, is to say there's multiple constructs that ultimately add to something bigger. And perhaps there's potential to also consider that ROI component, because that is next level mathematics, in my opinion.
Fully agreed. That's why I thought the question was going to be quite interesting, the response, because I don't know of a mathematical, although Ben, if you can perhaps design one from your PhD, I don't know how many more conversations we're going to have. You'll be quite well. So on that note, just want to do a wrap up, and thank you. Thank you to our SME panel, David, Omar, Professor Mancini, Ben, really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone that joined today. I would say if there's a single key takeaway, would be the EPMO evaluation toolkits and their value when they're connected to maturity and enterprise, and the significant importance of that. And when that's greater, you have executive confidence and stronger organizational outcomes. That's what I grasped from this whole segment, listening to you. Appreciate audience. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all the input and the questions. If this was an hour and a half, 2 hours, I'd be able to ask everyone, and it'd be interesting to hear some of the SME responses, although really appreciate it. So thank you. As well as our goal was to make this practical and relevant to everybody here. And lastly, I just want to say thank you, David Power, Richard, and to Dr. Joslin and the entire AIPMO ambassador team for helping and supporting today's event. At this part, we'll share some contact information and related resources to help continue the conversation. And we provide this as please feel free to reach out and stay connected. Feel free to reach out to myself or anybody here. We give them, say, contact information so people actually connect with us. We're really interested to hear some of those conversations. And once again, that's all I have. And thank you for your time, participation. Hand it off to David.
Great recap, Josh. Thank you for hosting this event, and thank you to all the SMEs on the phone. Greatly appreciate it.
Okay, that's all I have. Let's see, Ritu. Oh, there she is.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you, everyone. It was a great event, and I want to thank the ambassador team particularly, and also Ben and Professor Mancini we look forward to having many more events. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Alrighty. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.